What you fear establishes the boundaries of your freedom. And I was living in a self-contained prison, a self-made prison. So I decided to flip the script for myself, and I decided to use fear to my advantage. Whatever I was afraid of, I moved toward.
You need to decide what you want. You need to decide what you want to be remembered for. You need to decide what your legend will be.
Don't just ask once, and don't just look for one option. Use fear to your advantage. And I just started doing that with everything. I was afraid of roller coasters, so I went on the fastest ones. If I was afraid of the dark, I would just dive into deep, dark places. And I was afraid of rejection, I would just go out and go ahead and ask. If I was afraid of failure, I would go and try. And by the time I was in my 20s, I had a reputation for being an insane risk taker. I mean, I would walk into projects with armed guards with Uzi machine guns in every entry, cocaine stacked to ceilings. And I would walk in and make contact with the owners of drug cartels and began to talk to them about life and God. I think all of us are trying to, create a counterintuitive story. If we feel we were insignificant, we try to find significance and we try to give people significance, right? If we need to be healed and we find healing, then we try to heal other people. And for me, mine has always been, there's a heroic narrative inside of everyone. There's a hero inside of everyone waiting to be awakened. And the reason I know that is because I was a coward, but there was a hero inside of me. And when he woke up, he changed my life. I don't want to die with potential. And I thought, that's impossible unless you don't use any of your potential. And it just shrivels up and dies. I'm going to die with so much potential that on my tombstone, it's going to say, he had so much potential. Because whenever you use your potential, you end up with more. Whenever you use the potential intelligence, the potential talent, the potential skill, the potential essence of who you are, you get more. So you want a catch-22? If you use up more potential than anyone else, you're gonna die with more potential than anyone else. So if your goal is to die having used all your potential, the only way you're gonna do that is to shrivel up that potential by never using it. And so I'm gonna die with more potential than any day before that moment. Because if you use it, it just keeps growing. And that for me is exciting. You can't be humble if you're insecure. I value humility as one of the highest virtues. You cannot be humble if you do not know your power. If you do not know your power, you're not humble, you're just afraid. You're not humble, you're just compliant. The only person that can be truly humble is the person that knows their strength and knows their power, then chooses it to serve, chooses to empower, not overpower.
You need to decide what you want. You need to decide what you want to be remembered for. You need to decide what your legend will be. Because the reality is that we do not know how long we're going to get to build the tower. We have no idea. You may think you know, but you do not know. You may think you have plenty of time to build the tower that is you, to build the tower that is your life. But the only day we know we have is the day we're in. And so as you build that tower, you need to decide what are the stones that you're placing in place to build that tower. What are you doing today? Who are you today? What are the choices you're making right now? Because that is actually the only indicator of the tower you're building, of the life you're building, of the future you're creating. Are you willing to pay the price for the life you say you want?
When you have strength and you're kind, that's where it perplexes the world. When you're not dangerous, you're not really safe, you're just weak. But when you have power and force and strength, and then you choose to use that power and force and strength to be meek and kind and compassionate, to me, that's what it means to be masculine. Like, more people were afraid of failure than success. And ironically, fewer people crumble under the weight of failure than crumble under the weight of success. And if you don't develop the internal infrastructure, the character base to handle great success, you will use all of that power and wealth, fame, whatever you have, for your own good. And you'll become basically a black hole where everything is being consumed by your desire, by your greed, by your lust. And everyone around you gets consumed by you rather than having everything around you actually flourish. I always perceived myself to be a coward. I felt like I was afraid of everything. And I was afraid of failure. I was afraid of rejection. I was afraid of getting bit by a dog. I was afraid of heights. You pick it. I was afraid of it. I always had this hope that one day I could wake up and not be me, that I could be a me that I could value and feel significant and love. And that kind of led me through a journey, graduated from high school, barely graduated, didn't go to college. I worked as a carpenter, lumberjack. I worked construction. I flipped burgers, flipped pizzas. I did everything that required no skill and no education. and just started wondering, is this all there is to life? And I was desperate. And then I was running across a highway at 19 years old. I graduated from high school at 17, so I finished early. And then when I was 19, I was running across the highway, got hit head on by a car, became paralyzed briefly from the waist down. And it was just one of those moments in my life where I'm feeling like my life is ending fast. And I didn't have even a perception of a future, which I think is the most dangerous place to be when you can't imagine a better you or a better life or a better world. When you're small, you see life as all about things. And so it's toys. And then when you watch children play, they're all fighting over the same toy. There might be 20 toys, but the only toy that has value is the other toy that some kid has. And when you're small, you think life is about things. As you mature, you shift from things to experiences. You think life is all about experiences. It's the first kiss, your first date, your first, whatever football game, your first, goal. Everything is about experiences in life. And then if you mature, it moves from things to experiences to relationships. But the problem is a lot of people get older, but they never grow up. So they're still about things. It's just not Legos, it's Lamborghinis. Life is still about things. Or they grow to the adolescent stage where it's still about experiences. It's just not a first date. It's owning a yacht and a plane and traveling the world and going to Mars. And you just have to have another experience and another experience and another experience, because life is still all about experiences. But if you mature, you go from things to experiences to relationships.
And the question that I think all of us have to ask ourselves is, what kind of life do you actually want? You need to decide what you want. And one of the great challenges is that so oftentimes other people want a better life for you than you want for yourself. And you can be here in this space and we can talk to you all day and all night. We can do everything we can to build an infrastructure and a community to help you succeed. But if you do not decide what life you want, you will never have the life you want. You'll just have the life you can't. There have been people who have laughed at me in the past because they thought I had failed. They didn't know I wasn't finished.
But I think like my canvas is actually like the human spirit, that where I find my most tangible and rewarding works of art is when I see a person achieve their own personal greatness. And so as much as I love designing clothes and making films and writing books and having like artifacts that are in a sense expressions or proof of my creative essence, they pale in comparison to when I feel like, wow, I've helped someone find themselves and become like the best version of themselves. That to me is the work of artistry that is uniquely, I think, my space. As I sat down with a guy who, when he was 29, had his first $100 million company. And I think actually became a $1 billion company. And then he lost it all because his board fired him because he was such a jerk. And then he spent the next year rebuilding another $100 million company. So he's very good at what he does. And I'm at this event and I see him and we sit down together and we start a conversation. And I remember I looked at him and he asked me, what do you see? And I said, what I see is that you're going to die alone. You've made choices in your life where you do not allow anyone within the inner circle of who you really are. No one sees you, no one knows you. You communicate a message to everyone, stay away from me. And later on that day, another guy who was super successful came and said, hey, that guy told me you talked to him, that you slapped him around. And that night he said, I told my friends, I can't believe he talked to me this way. No one talks to me this way. And then a couple hours later, he came and said, what do I do? Say yes. Say yes to people who invite you into their lives. One of the things I've discovered is that people who are hyper successful become terrified of letting people into their life because they're not really sure if people love them or the benefit of being near them. And so if you don't develop the value of relationships early, it's almost impossible to develop them when you're successful. It's just like the person who says, I'll be generous when I'm rich, but right now I'm too poor to be generous. If you don't learn generosity when you're poor, you will never become generous when you're rich. Because I get the privilege of doing big things, and people think that's what makes you, but I feel like the only thing that earns me the right to be in the big stage is that I'm true to who I am in the small stage. I just think that if you have the capacity to create wealth, it's a lack of responsibility to not create it. Because people don't have the same capacity. There are people smarter than me, people more talented than me, people more gifted than me. And there are perhaps people I'm more gifted or more talented or more intelligent than. And you can't measure people equally. You have to take responsibility and stewardship for what you have. And somebody was born in Ethiopia. They do not have the opportunities that you have when you're born in Los Angeles. They might have the same intellectual capacity or talent, or innate capacity, but not have the opportunity. If you have the opportunity, to me, you have the responsibility. This guy graduated from UCLA, and when he graduated, he said, I don't know what to do now, and his parents spent so much money on his school. And I said, you mean, what do you mean? He goes, to pay the bills. I said, you just graduated from UCLA and your parents spent a few $100,000 to send you to school, and your entire motive in life is to pay the bills. You need to create a company that provides 1,000 people with jobs, so that you're providing 4,000 people with meals, so that all of these families have roofs over their heads and food on the table and an opportunity for them to live their greatest dreams. If you have the capacity, to me, you have the responsibility. Fame, like wealth, power, success, they're wonderful outcomes, but they're terrible intentions. Like when wealth is your intention, you will be empty. You'll never have enough. When fame is your intention, you will be a slave to the audience. You will live for the applause and die when you don't have it. And you'll feel an incredible aloneness, because when you're by yourself, no one is celebrating you or applauding you. Those are the worst intentions: wealth, fame, power, position. When your intention is to do something meaningful in the world, when your intention is to become a human being that makes a positive and beautiful contribution to the world, nothing can destroy that. If somebody asked me about how do you not lose your purpose when your business fails? And I said, your business should have never been your purpose. Your purpose should always be about the person you're becoming, not about the work you're doing. Yeah, my business failed, I'm still becoming. Didn't want to lose all that money. Would have been really nice if I made it, would have liked to have been more successful in that arena, but it doesn't change who I am. It's just like, I spoke at this event a few years ago. It was really weird. It was a huge event, and I think they saw themselves as being like tastemakers, I guess. And after I spoke, they said, they asked me to do a podcast, so I went and did it, and they said, you've now spoken here. How are you handling this level of success? And I said, well, I thought I was successful before I got here until you told me that I wasn't. And I said, evidently I must have been living in the illusion. And I said, but let me tell you how powerful that illusion is. When I was working with 10 people who were all impoverished, I actually considered myself a success. When I was making $6,000 a year and serving people and living a meaningful life, I lived under the illusion that I was a success. When no one knew me, when no one ever invited me to speak anywhere, and no one ever signed me for a book, and no one ever paid me to speak at an event, I lived under the illusion that I was a success. So I was never trying to become a success. I already felt like one, and I was just moving toward it. And it's so much better to start from worth than trying to find worth. It's just so much. So I lived under the illusion that my life mattered, no matter what impact I made. And it was just a more wonderful illusion to live in. But someone the other day asked me, is it lonely at the top? And I said, if I'm at any top, I have more friends now than I've ever had in my entire life. But they're not the same friends. Because every time I had to elevate, I lost the people who were my friends at that different level of living, even though I tried to hold on to them. And I had to realize that the loneliness of growth is the transitions where you lose the people you had that you don't have yet, the people you will have. And I think the hard work of greatness, of achievement, of high success is taking the time to make sure that you always find that next community of people that will love you and celebrate you, that will cheer you on and make you better.
Today's video was sponsored by Huel, a quick, affordable, nutritionally complete source of food with everything that your body needs. Huel has been the sponsor now for the start of the year, and I've been using Huel for over 2 years now. And the reason for that is because when I fly around the world making these documentaries, trying to be an athlete and having a busy life, to know that I can reach in my bag and have everything that my body needs in a bottle has been an absolute game changer. It means that sometimes if I need to save the time, but also get the nutrition, the protein, the calories, the energy on the go, I know that I can. They also have the new product, the greens, the daily greens, which are absolutely amazing and now part of my daily routine. If you want to find out more with the exclusive offers, head to the link in the description.